Taurus. Welcome back to Starspoken Oracle. This is episode 9 of your weekly reading, and today we are reading for Taurus, for the week of July 1st through July 7th, 2026. An old structure, an old teacher, an old way of doing things is asking for one more look before you move on from it. Every week I shuffle the deck for all 12 signs and let the cards fall where they need to, but this week's sky is doing more of the talking than usual. Two fast-moving planets are about to shake things loose right in the middle of a slower, more introspective retrograde season, and that tension between speed and patience shows up in your card whether you notice it right away or not. Before we get to your card, let's talk about what the sky is actually doing this week, because it touches every single sign, and it shapes exactly how your card wants to be read. The cosmic weather. This week's sky is anything but quiet. Mercury is retrograde in Cancer, a shift that began June 29th and holds through July 23rd, which means communication, travel, and old business all move a little slower, a little more prone to mix-ups, and a lot more likely to circle back to unfinished conversations from the past. Do not panic about the delays. Retrograde season is not punishment, it is a review period, and if you use it that way instead of fighting it, this can be one of the more productive stretches of your year. Then, on July 4th, two things happen within hours of each other. Mars forms an exact, volatile conjunction with Uranus at 3 degrees of Gemini, a combustible pairing of raw drive and sudden disruption that has been building since late June and finally snaps into focus. Expect the unexpected this week, sudden changes of plan, flashes of insight, or a jolt of energy that moves faster than your ability to plan for it. On the same day, Venus glides into confident, warm-hearted Leo, softening the sharper edges of the week with a dose of romance, creativity, and self-assurance. So the week has two moods running at once, Mercury retrograde asking you to slow down, review, and finish what you started, while Mars, Uranus, and Venus in Leo push you toward sudden action and bold self-expression. The trick is not choosing one over the other, it is knowing which parts of your life need the pause, and which parts need the leap. Every reading this week, for every sign, is really a variation on that same question: where in your life is patience the answer, and where is boldness overdue? This is episode 9 of Starspoken Oracle, which means we are now solidly past the midpoint of the year and sliding into the back half of summer, a natural point for stock-taking even without a retrograde underlining it. Whatever you started back in January has had 6 months to prove itself. This week's mixed signals of pause and leap are, in a sense, the sky asking you to check in on exactly that. For you, Taurus, this is a week to let Mercury's retrograde energy pull you backward towards something proven, while Venus's shift into Leo simply adds warmth around the edges of it. Your card. Now, Taurus, let's turn the card. I shuffled the deck thinking about your week, about the energy the stars are handing you, and about what you need to hear rather than what might be comfortable to hear. The card that came up for you this week is the Hierophant. Take a breath with that one, Taurus. Let's talk about what it actually means for you right now, and why the timing of this particular card, in this particular week, is not a coincidence. What it means. The Hierophant is the card of tradition, institutions, and the wisdom that gets passed down instead of discovered alone. He sits between two pillars holding a key, the keeper of systems that work, even when they are unglamorous. This is not the card of reinventing the wheel. It is the card of returning to what has already been proven, and deciding, with clear eyes, whether it still deserves your loyalty. The Hierophant is sometimes mistaken for rigidity, but its deeper meaning is continuity, the comfort of belonging to something larger than your own moment-to-moment mood. This week, that comfort is available if you are willing to ask for guidance instead of insisting on figuring it out entirely alone. Here's something worth watching for as the week unfolds, Taurus. You might notice this showing up as an old email thread resurfacing, a former colleague's name coming up in conversation, or a recipe, song, or routine from years ago suddenly feeling relevant again. Pay attention to what keeps circling back this week. It is circling back for a reason. The areas of your life. Let's walk through where this lands, Taurus. In love and relationships. In relationships, the Hierophant this week points toward tradition and commitment, formalizing something, returning to an old agreement, or reconnecting with the values that brought you together in the first place. If you have been drifting from the routines that used to steady your relationship, the weekly dinner, the honest check-in, this is the week to bring them back. Single Taurus may find themselves drawn to someone whose values feel refreshingly old-fashioned in the best way. A conversation with a parent, elder, or long-term partner carries extra weight this week. Listen for wisdom, not just opinion, even if the delivery is a little old-fashioned for your taste. In work and career. Professionally, this is a week to lean on the tried and true rather than the untested. Revisit a method that worked before you abandoned it. Reconnect with a mentor, a former boss, or a certification you let lapse. Mercury retrograde makes this an unusually good week for review rather than launch. Polish the old plan instead of chasing a new one. If a mentor or former colleague reaches out, or if you find yourself thinking of one unprompted, take it as a nudge to reconnect. Retrograde season often reopens exactly these kinds of dormant professional threads. In money and resources. With money, the Hierophant favors the boring, proven strategy over the exciting new one, the budget you already know works, the financial advice from someone older and steadier than you. Revisit an old system you abandoned. It probably still holds up. Consider revisiting a financial plan you built with someone you trust in the past, an advisor, a parent, a partner, rather than building an entirely new one from scratch this week. And in health and energy. Your body wants ritual this week, the same walk, the same bedtime, the same grounding habit you know works but have let slide. Structure is not boring right now, Taurus. It is medicine. A familiar practice, the gym you used to go to, the routine you dropped months ago, is easier to return to this week than to reinvent something new from nothing. And one more area worth naming this week, your own growth. Your growth edge is trusting guidance instead of insisting on total self-sufficiency. Reaching out to someone with more experience is not a failure of independence, it is an efficient use of wisdom that already exists and does not need to be rebuilt from scratch. Your guidance for the week. Before the practical advice, a word on timing, Taurus, because this week's sky moves in a specific shape. The early part of the week favors quiet reflection, a good stretch for reviewing an old plan before you touch it. Around July 4th, as Venus shifts into Leo, expect a small burst of social warmth even amid the retrograde slowdown. By the weekend, a conversation with someone older or more experienced is especially likely to land well, so do not rush to have it on Monday. So what do you actually do with all of this? Do not chase novelty this week. Return to what has already proven itself, dust it off, and trust that steady and familiar is not the same as stuck. Taurus, the old road is not a step backward. Sometimes it is simply the road that was always going to get you where you are headed. If you take one thing from this reading into your week, Taurus, let it be that. Not as a rule to follow perfectly, but as a direction to lean toward when you are not sure which way to turn. Come back to your card if the week gets confusing. The Hierophant is simpler advice than it looks at first glance. Closing. Before you go, Taurus, here is a one-line journal prompt to sit with this week if you want to take this reading further than just listening. Where this week am I being asked to slow down, and where am I being asked to leap? Write down the first honest answer that comes to mind, not the answer that sounds best, just the one that is true. Taurus, here is your affirmation for the week of July 1st to 7th. Say it with me, once, like you mean it. I trust the wisdom that has already proven itself. Carry that with you as you move through this week's The Hierophant. That is your reading for this week. If this landed for you, subscribe so you do not miss episode 10. It drops next Wednesday, with a brand new card for every sign. And if this week's reading was helpful, share it with the Taurus in your life who needs to hear it too. The stars have spoken, Taurus. Until next week.